I never thought one single night could destroy everything I had built. But it did. One phone call. One truth I wasn't ready to hear. And from that moment on, nothing in my life was ever the same. Subscribe and tell me in the comments what you would do if you were in my shoes. It all started when I was sitting alone in my car after a long shift. I had already been struggling at work for weeks. My company was downsizing, and I knew my name was on the list. Bills were piling up, and I felt like a failure, unable to provide the stability my wife deserved. I thought the worst part of my life was losing my career. I had no idea that the real storm was still coming. That night, my wife told me she was working late again. It wasn't unusual, but something about the way she avoided eye contact at breakfast that morning had stuck with me. I brushed it off, convincing myself I was just paranoid from stress. But deep down, a pit had formed in my stomach, one that refused to go away. As I sat in my car, I got a call from my best friend, Mark. He sounded hesitant, almost guilty. He asked me if I was alone, and when I said yes, his words cut like a knife. "Man, I don't know how to tell you this, but I saw your wife tonight. And she wasn't alone." My chest tightened, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. I wanted to scream, deny it, hang up. But I couldn't. My worst fear was unfolding right in front of me. Was my marriage already over, and I was just too blind to see it? The very next morning, my fears doubled down on me. I walked into the office, and before I could even sit at my desk, my boss called me into his office. His face told me everything before he even opened his mouth. "We're letting you go," he said flatly, like I was just another number on a spreadsheet. No warning, no severance, just a box for my things and a handshake that felt colder than ice. I drove home in silence, staring blankly at the road, my mind replaying Mark's words from the night before. Losing my job was devastating enough, but the possibility that my wife was cheating on me made everything spiral out of control. It felt like life was stripping me of everything I had worked for, one piece at a time. When I got home, she wasn't there. She texted me, "Working late again." The same line. The same excuse. I almost wanted to believe her, because facing the truth meant admitting I was losing not just my career, but my marriage too. That evening, I sat in our living room surrounded by bills, an empty bank account, and an empty house. I stared at our wedding picture on the wall, her smile so bright, my arm wrapped proudly around her. Back then, I thought I had everything I'd ever need. Now it all felt like a lunch. I couldn't shake the question, if she really was cheating, how long had it been going on? Had she already decided to leave me? Or was she just waiting until I was completely broken to walk away? The uncertainty was eating me alive. Over the next few days, her distance became impossible to ignore. She would barely speak to me at dinner, avoided eye contact, and laughed less at our inside jokes. Even the way she touched me felt rehearsed, like she was going through motions that no longer had meaning. I tried to talk to her, gently, asking if everything was okay, but she always had an excuse ready: stress at work, too much on her mind, maybe I was imagining things. But I wasn't imagining it. I could feel it in every fiber of my being. Something was wrong, and I was terrified of finding out the truth. Every time she left the room, my mind raced with possibilities. Was she unhappy, bored, or, worse? The thought of betrayal gnawed at me day and night. I started checking my phone more often, pretending it was casual, but hoping to catch something, anything, that would confirm my suspicions. Late-night notifications, messages disappearing, her sudden obsession with privacy. It all painted a picture I didn't want to admit. One night, I stayed up until 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling, replaying our entire relationship in my head. Every argument, every awkward silence, every time she seemed distant, suddenly, it all made sense. The truth was closer than I wanted to believe, and the thought of confronting it made my heart pound like a drum. And then, just when I thought I might lose my mind waiting, Mark called again. His voice was cautious, almost guilty. "I didn't want to say anything, but I think you deserve to know. She's been seeing someone else." My world tilted. Was this real life, or some cruel nightmare I couldn't wake up from? It started with small things at first: messages on her phone that she quickly locked or deleted when I walked by, calls she'd taken the other room, whispering too softly for me to hear but just loud enough for suspicion to grow. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was work, maybe she was stressed. But my gut screamed otherwise. One night, I couldn't sleep, so I quietly picked up her phone while she was in the shower. My hands shook, heart hammering in my chest. There it was, Texts from a man I had never met, messages dripping with intimacy and secrets meant to be hidden. The words cut like knives, jokes, late night I miss you texts, plans that didn't include me. I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, watching my life fall apart piece by piece. Then came the calls. Her phone would ring at odd hours, and she'd step into the bedroom or bathroom, whispering and laughing quietly. I didn't want to eavesdrop, but every instinct told me something terrible was happening. One call lasted over 30 minutes. I could hear her voice, soft and hesitant, but the tone wasn't mine. I started keeping notes, times, dates, patterns. The more I documented, the clearer the picture became. She wasn't just distant. She was hiding something, and I had finally uncovered the first tangible proof. But even with evidence, confronting her felt impossible. I was scared, broken, and unsure of how far this betrayal went. I knew one thing: my life would never be the same again. Was I ready to find out the full truth, no matter how painful it might be? It happened one evening when I decided to follow her, not stalk, just see for myself what was going on. I told myself it was for clarity, for my own peace of mind, but the guilt was already eating me alive. I parked a few blocks away and waited, heart racing, mind screaming at me to leave. She left the house, dressed as if for a normal night out, but I noticed the way she glanced around, nervous, almost excited. She got into her car, and I followed, keeping a safe distance. My stomach churned as we drove through the city, lights blurring past me. Then she stopped at a small cafe I had never noticed her mention before. Through the window, I saw him. A man, leaning casually against the table, smiling as she approached. The look on her face, the one I used to know so well, was completely different. Warm, intimate, happy. Not the face of the woman I loved for years. My chest tightened, and I felt like someone had shoved a knife through my heart. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to turn away, to pretend I hadn't seen anything, but I couldn't. Every detail of the scene burned into my memory: the way they laughed, the way he brushed her hair from her face, the hand she placed lightly on his arm. She was with him, not me. And then, just as suddenly as it began, she left. I followed them for a few more blocks, silently observing the betrayal unfold in real time. My mind raced with questions: how long? How often? Did she even love me anymore? That night, I returned home, silent and hollow. I knew confronting her now could change everything, but part of me feared I wasn't ready for the answer. Was I supposed to fight for us, or accept the truth and let go? The next morning, I decided I had to confront her, even if it terrified me. I wasn't sure how I'd find the courage, but I couldn't let the tension eat me alive any longer. I asked her about the cafe, casually at first, trying to gauge her reaction. Her eyes flickered, a tiny hesitation I had never seen before. "Just a work thing," she said, voice tight. "You know. Some networking. Nothing serious." But it wasn't just the words. It was the way she avoided my gaze, the nervous tapping of her fingers, the quick sighs she couldn't hide. Excuses that once might have been believable now sounded rehearsed, hollow. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to demand the truth, but I didn't. I just watched, heart pounding, as the woman I loved became a stranger before my eyes. Over the next week, the patterns continued. Late-night calls, messages deleted too quickly, sudden trips for work that she claimed were urgent. Every lie chipped away at the foundation of our marriage. I started documenting everything: the times, the excuses, the inconsistencies, like evidence in a case I never wanted to investigate. And yet, part of me still hoped I was wrong. Maybe she was stressed, maybe she wasn't cheating, maybe I was letting paranoia take over. But deep down, I knew the truth was closer than I wanted to admit. Then came the final straw, a text I wasn't supposed to see. It wasn't just affectionate, it was intimate, playful, and meant for someone else entirely. I stared at it, unable to move, unable to breathe, and realized there was no excuse this time. No work stress, no misunderstanding. The betrayal was real. But now the real question hit me harder than the proof itself: what was I going to do about it? By this point, I couldn't take it anymore. The house that once felt like a safe haven had turned into a prison. Every corner reminded me of what I had lost, or what I was about to lose. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, and even the simplest tasks felt impossible. The betrayal, combined with losing my job, had pushed me to a breaking point I never imagined I'd reach. I remember sitting on the edge of our bed, phone in hand, scrolling through messages I had collected over the past weeks. Each one felt like another punch to the gut. I felt rage, sorrow, confusion, Emotions I couldn't untangle. I yelled at the empty room, tears streaming down my face, wishing I could turn back time. But there was no turning back. The life I thought I had was gone. And then she came home. The moment our eyes met, the air thickened. I wanted to shout, demand answers, or maybe just disappear. But instead, I stayed silent, letting the weight of my pain hang between us. I could see guilt in her eyes, but also impatience, annoyance, like my suffering was an inconvenience she didn't have time for. That cut deeper than anything else. I realized then that I had a choice: continue to break, letting her betrayal define me, or fight to reclaim some control over my life. I wasn't ready to forgive, not yet, but I knew I had to survive, even if it meant facing the hardest nights alone. And just when I thought I might collapse completely, my phone buzzed. A message from Mark: "Meet me. You need to see this for yourself." I didn't know it yet, but this message would lead me straight to the shocking truth. I met Mark at a small, dimly lit cafe. He looked tense, avoiding eye contact, like he was carrying a weight he didn't want to drop. I sat down, heart racing, and he slid a photo across the table. My stomach dropped the moment I saw it. It was her, my wife, laughing in a restaurant, holding hands with another man. Not a colleague, not a friend. A stranger I had never met. But the intimacy between them was undeniable. My hands shook as I stared at the photo, trying to make sense of it. I wanted to close my eyes, to tell myself it wasn't real, but the evidence was there, undeniable. Mark hesitated, then spoke softly. "I didn't want to be the one to tell you, man. But you deserve to know. I saw them together a few times over the past month. It wasn't just a one-time thing." My chest tightened, my mind spinning. How could someone I trusted so deeply betray me so completely? Every memory we had shared now felt tainted, every laugh and tender moment overshadowed by this hidden life she had been living behind my back. I left the cafe in a daze, clutching my phone like it might give me answers. Part of me wanted revenge immediately, part of me wanted to disappear, and part of me felt hollow, like I didn't even exist in the world anymore. And then I realized something terrifying. I didn't just need proof. I needed to confront her. I needed answers, even if the truth shattered the last remnants of my heart. But I had no idea how explosive that confrontation would become. I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I needed to see her myself, to confirm what Mark had told me. That night, I stayed up, hiding in the shadows of our living room, heart hammering so loudly I was sure she could hear it. Every creak of the floor, every whisper of the wind outside made me flinch. Around midnight, I heard the soft click of the front door. She came in quietly, looking around as if expecting someone. And then my phone buzzed, another message. My hands trembled as I read it. "Can't wait to see you tonight, red heart emoji." My blood ran cold. I followed her into the bedroom, hiding just out of sight. And then I saw it, her, on a video call, laughing and whispering to him. Their smiles, their touches, the way she leaned close to the screen. It was all too real, too intimate. Every instinct in my body screamed to step in, to shout, to end it. But I stayed frozen. I wanted to remember this, to have undeniable proof. Minutes felt like hours. I watched her, the woman I thought I knew, live a life I had never imagined. And the worst part? She didn't even realize I knew. Her laughter echoed in the room, piercing my chest like 1,000 needles. Finally, she ended the call and lay down, exhausted, completely unaware of my presence. I realized then that I couldn't trust her, not anymore. And a dark thought crossed my mind. I had to confront her tomorrow, in a way that she would never forget. Would I be able to face her, or would the betrayal break me completely? The next morning, I couldn't wait any longer. I called her into the living room, my hands shaking, my chest tight with a mix of rage and heartbreak. She looked at me, puzzled, unaware that her entire world was about to shift. "I know," I said, my voice barely above a whisper at first, then rising with every word. "I know about him. I know about the texts, the calls. Everything." Her face went pale. For a second, I thought she might deny it, but then I saw it, the flicker of guilt she couldn't hide. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. I continued, each sentence slicing through the air like a blade. I showed her the messages, the photos Mark had sent, and even the patterns I had documented. She tried to justify it at first, saying she felt neglected, that I had been distant since losing my job. But I wasn't listening anymore. Every excuse sounded empty, pathetic. The woman I loved had betrayed me in the most intimate way possible, and there was no turning back. The confrontation escalated quickly. Shouts, Tears, accusations flying back and forth. I felt a mix of anger, grief, and a strange sense of clarity. Finally, she ran from the room, slamming the door behind her. And in that moment, I realized something. I had taken back control of my own life, even if it meant losing her forever. But this was just the beginning. The real challenge would be rebuilding myself from the ruins she had left behind. Would I survive this? Or would the betrayal crush me entirely? That night, after she left, the silence of the apartment was deafening. Every corner, every object reminded me of the life I thought I had. The bed where we once laughed, the photos on the wall, the little notes we left for each other, it all felt meaningless now. My world had collapsed in a single night, and I was left alone in the wreckage. I sat on the floor, knees pulled to my chest, replaying everything over and over in my mind. The betrayal, the lies, the disbelief, it was too much to process. I thought about our friends, our families, all the people who had known us as a happy couple. What would they think? Could they ever look at me the same way again? I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, smiling at someone else, living a life that was supposed to be mine. Rage mixed with sorrow, a cocktail that left me trembling. I felt powerless, humiliated, and completely broken. But somewhere in that darkness, a small spark of resolve appeared. I realized that letting this destroy me entirely would be the ultimate victory for her, and for the life that had betrayed me. I needed to stand up, even if it meant doing it alone. I had lost so much, but I wasn't ready to lose myself. Could I rebuild from nothing, or had I already been shattered beyond repair? The days that followed were the hardest I've ever faced. I moved through life on autopilot, handling bills, job applications, and the crushing loneliness that came with being abandoned. Each morning felt like climbing a mountain, but slowly, almost imperceptibly, I began to reclaim small pieces of myself. I started with the basics, cleaning the apartment, organizing my finances, and focusing on my health. I ran in the mornings, just to feel my own strength return. Every mile, every drop of sweat, reminded me that I still existed outside of her betrayal. It was grueling, but necessary. I also leaned on Mark and a few close friends, finally allowing myself to admit how broken I felt. Talking about the pain, sharing the burden, it made the world feel slightly less heavy. They reminded me that this was not the end, that I still had value, that I could rebuild. One day, while searching for jobs online, I stumbled across an opportunity I would never have considered before. It required skills I had, but confidence I wasn't sure I still possessed. Something inside me clicked. I realized I wasn't the same person who had lost everything. I had survived betrayal and failure, and maybe, just maybe, I could thrive again. Even in the darkness of abandonment, I found a flicker of hope. I didn't yet know what the future held, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like I might be able to stand tall again. Would this newfound resolve be enough to completely rebuild my life? Slowly, life began to shift. I landed a new job, not as prestigious as my old one, but stable, with colleagues who respected me. The sense of accomplishment from doing work I could be proud of, even on a smaller scale, was addictive. For the first time in months, I felt competent again. I also started reconnecting with hobbies I had abandoned, reading, running, even cooking for myself. Each small victory reminded me that my life didn't have to revolve around someone else's betrayal. I was learning to enjoy my own company, to find satisfaction in things that had nothing to do with her. Friends noticed the change too. They commented on my new confidence, the way I carried myself, the subtle smile that had returned to my face. Their support, combined with my own determination, created a momentum I hadn't thought possible. Even emotionally, I was healing. The anger was still there, a sharp edge, but it no longer consumed me. I could think about her without feeling my chest tighten, could remember the good times without being crushed by the betrayal. It was a delicate balance, but a balance nonetheless. And then, unexpectedly, an opportunity came knocking that would test everything I had rebuilt. A chance to step up in my career, to take on responsibility I hadn't imagined I could handle, and prove to myself, and everyone else, that I was more than the life she had tried to ruin. Was I ready for this next challenge, or would the past drag me back down? The opportunity turned out to be a turning point I had desperately needed. I took on the new role, and for the first time in months, I felt alive and in control. My skills, determination, and resilience shone through, and colleagues began to notice. Promotions, recognition, and respect came, not all at once, but steadily, like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. I also started setting boundaries with people who didn't bring positivity into my life, including her. I realized that my peace and growth mattered more than lingering resentment. Every step forward reinforced that I could thrive without her, and that betrayal could never define me. Socially, too, I began to rebuild my support network. Friends who had stayed through my lowest points became pillars in my life. I started reconnecting with old acquaintances, attending events, and even letting myself laugh again. Humor, something I hadn't felt in months, returned as a reminder that life could be joyful again. By the end of this period, I wasn't just surviving, I was living. I had reclaimed my independence, my confidence, and my sense of purpose. And the person staring back at me in the mirror was someone I was proud to know, resilient, determined, and stronger than I had ever imagined. I realized then that life could take everything from you, and still give you a chance to rise, better and wiser than before. But the final lesson was yet to come. Looking back now, I can hardly believe how far I've come. The man who sat alone in that apartment, heartbroken and betrayed, feels like a different person from the one I am today. I survived losing my job, losing my wife, and losing the life I thought I would always have, and in the process, I discovered a strength I didn't know existed. I learned that betrayal, as painful as it is, doesn't have to define you. It can either break you completely or become the catalyst for your transformation. I chose the latter. I rebuilt my life step by step, learned to trust myself again, and surrounded myself with people who truly cared. Every setback, every heartbreak became a lesson, a reminder that I am stronger than any challenge life throws my way. Now, when I think about her and the life I lost, I don't feel bitterness, I feel clarity. I know my worth, my boundaries, and my power. And I know that even when the world seems to collapse, there's always a way to rise, to fight back, and to reclaim your life. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and stay tuned for the next drama. Was I wrong for following my instincts and uncovering the truth? Who do you think is the real villain here?